New York City. So we will get started with this training here in just a moment. All right, I'm checking it out. Looks like most people are up and running on the audio. Thank you again for joining us here today from wherever around the world you are located. So nice to see you all. The training today will last about 20 minutes. Adrian's going to give us the lay of the land in just a second here. We're just seeing to make sure everybody is up and running on the audio. All right, we are looking pretty good. Wonderful. All right, we have started that recording. You should have had an announcement letting you know this session is being recorded, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Adrian to give us a welcome. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Rachel, and thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. The idea for this training, as we have said before, we're going to be running a bit through the training that we did 1 month ago. So we're going to be going through the main points. So then it's a refreshment for everybody. And also we're going to be answering some of the questions that have been submitted prior to today for the training. We are disabling the chat, but you will have the opportunity, should one of your questions or should you have more questions, you will have the opportunity to submit some questions to us after the training, and then we will be answering those questions in writing. Questions that have not been answered during the training will be answered in writing, but those questions that we have answered, we will not be transcribing into writing. The recording will be available for everybody to watch. And yes, I think that's the idea of the training. So we're going to be focusing on a bit of Passable. We're going to be answering your questions, and then at the end, you will have the possibility to ask more questions to us that we will be submitting or will be responding to you in writing and circulating to all of you. So Rachel, when you're ready, you can start with the training.
All right, thanks, Adrian. And I just want to give a shout out to Kat, who is here joining us today. You will hear from her later on in our presentation. And so just wanted to say hello and good morning there. All right, as Adrian mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here to give you a refresher course on the presentation that we did last month. You can go ahead and sit back and relax. This presentation is just about 20 minutes. Today, I will talk to you about how to update your personal profile out on the platform. We'll go through how you can manage your session ahead of time by adding in files and polls. We'll talk about what you can expect when your session is live, and then we'll go through some best practices. So just a couple of recommendations here as you're getting up and running. As we mentioned, the chat is disabled, and we will be answering the questions that you submitted ahead of time here at the end of the presentation. Now, by now, you should have received an invitation to the Pathable platform. It will look similar to this, and you'll see here at the bottom an all-important button. If you have registered, you will receive this invitation. And so you know, every single person needs to register in order to have access to the conference. And Kat has just now put in the chat our registration link. So if you have not seen this email and you have not registered, that's why. Head out to that link, go ahead and register so you'll be given access to the platform. Once you receive this invitation, you'll see down here at the center an all-important button. Clicking this button here will take you out to your event site to claim your account. You'll notice that some of your information will automatically populate, and you will need to create a password. It only needs to be 6 characters, and moving forward, you will log into the site with this email address and this password. Once you agree to our terms and conditions, you will see 2 options. You can continue to the home page of your site, or you can complete your profile at this time. We do recommend that you complete your profile. It only takes just a minute. So click that button there and it will take you out to this page. You'll see your name and information up here at the top, and down below you have fields that you can fill out. Please know that your phone number and email address will not be displayed on your public profile, so you can feel comfortable putting that information in here. Once you're content, you can hit that save button. And if at any time you'd like to edit this information, you can hover over your name in the desktop header and then click Edit My Profile. So that will bring you right back here at any time. Now, when an attendee clicks on your name or image throughout the platform, they'll be able to see the details you entered and any sessions you are speaking or participating in. So those sessions will automatically populate here if you are the speaker or session host, so the attendee will know where they can find you throughout the conference. Now, once you have logged into the site, you do have the opportunity to add in files and polls to your specific session. The quickest way to navigate to your session is to head to the word schedule in the navigation bar and then select My Schedule. Any session that you are speaking at or that you are the session host will automatically populate here for you. Additionally, any sessions you have added to your personal agenda will be located here. Now, to walk you through those steps, out here on your site, step 1 is to head to the schedule button in the top of your navigation bar. Step 2 is to select that My Schedule option. You'll see here all of the sessions you have added to your personal agenda, as well as any session you are speaking at or that you are the session host. When you click on the agenda card, you'll be taken here to the agenda details page. On the left-hand side, your attendees will see everyone who is speaking here at this session. Down below, they'll see any description or information about the session. And on the right-hand side, as you can see, there is a chat. Now, this chat is available before, during, and after your session, so your attendees can continue to communicate here on this public session chat. The chat is threaded, so if you'd like to reply, you can reply into the chain here, and you will see that populate directly on the chat. Now, the next tab over you will see are the polls. This is where your attendees can enter in their questions for you. And as the speaker or session host, you can add in additional polls. Any files you would like your attendees to download, so any digital material you would like them to download for your session, you can add in here to the Files tab. In order to add in polls and files, you'll do that through the Manage button, which is located in the top right-hand corner of the Agenda Details page. Here in the Manage screen, you'll see you have a tab for Files. You can click the Add New File button and upload a file up to 10 gigabytes in size, or provide an external link. Anything that you provide here will populate under the Files tab on your Agenda Details page. Now, under the Polls tab, you will see that your session comes automatically populated with questions for the speaker. If you'd like to add in an additional poll, you can hit this Add New Poll button. We're going to ask you for a friendly name. This is just what you would like to call the poll. Your attendees will not see this. And then you need to choose what kind of poll will this be. Will it be multiple choice, in which you will provide options for your attendees to select from? Free text entry, in which we will allow unique responses from your attendees? Or rate, which will populate 5 stars for your attendees to choose from. Once you select your question type, you will then fill in the fields below accordingly. Now, down here at the bottom, we do have 2 important checkboxes. The first will make it so your attendees cannot see the response to the poll. So if you check this box here, the responses will only be displayed here in the Manage screen. The second box is about when this poll will be available. Now, polls will be available for your attendees as soon as you hit this Create button, or If you check this box, the poll will be released at the start time of your session. Now, while we're talking about polls, this is what is available, and you can choose what is best for your particular session. Here, I have some examples for you. All of your polls will populate under the Polls tab. So this is where they will all be. If you choose the free text entry, that will be able to be displayed in a list format in which attendees can upvote responses they agree with, or as a word cloud, a more artistic display of the responses from your attendees. Multi-choice, you can customize the options, color code them, and display as a bar graph or a pie chart, and with percentages or counts. The last poll is rate, which will populate those 5 stars for your attendees to choose from in response to your question or statement. Now, as soon as you have logged into the World Water Week site, you can add in these files and polls to your session so attendees can begin engaging. Now, let's talk about the 2 types of sessions you may be participating in. The first here is a webinar. Now, a webinar is a more sit-back experience for your attendees. They will be watching the presentation through the embedded player on the Pathable platform, and they will engage with the chat and polls. This style of session is what we are using for our storytelling and interactive sessions. For our next style, we have a meeting. Now, a meeting is a much more interactive experience. Your attendees will be popped out in Zoom with you. You can use those breakout rooms. And for optimal experience, everyone does need to have Zoom downloaded as the speaker, session host, and the attendee. These sessions will be those pitches, these super interactive / training sessions, and anything that is interactive with a breakout room is going to be a meeting style. Now, we'll start here with the webinar. If you are a speaker or session host of a webinar, you will have access to a green room. This is a practice Zoom room that you will have access to 20 minutes before the start time of your session. So you can get into that room, get settled, and meet with your Pathable support staff. We will have a Pathable support staff member in each green room, and they will go through a checklist to make sure that everyone is ready to go live. You can see that checklist out in the Convener Resources Library under Checklist, and that link is in our chat right now. So if you'd like to see what they will be going through with you, you can check that out on the Convener Resource Library. Now, you can stay in this green room until everyone is truly ready to go live to the attendees. There is no countdown timer, so you do need to mind your own time to make sure that you start your session at the appropriate time. When you are ready, click the Start Webinar button to go live to your attendees. Each session does have a 2-minute leeway, so if your session is running a little bit long, you'll have 2 additional minutes past the scheduled end time to wrap up conversations before the room will automatically close. We do have a tight schedule here at World Water Week, so we would like you to please start your sessions on time and conclude them as soon as you are supposed to. Now, to start your webinar, you'll find it the same way you did to manage. You'll head to the navigation bar, click the schedule option, and then select My Schedule. From there, you will click on the agenda card of the session you'd like to start. Here in the agenda details page, you will see this countdown timer. When you are given access to your session, that timer will be replaced with a Start Meeting or Join Meeting button. You, as the session host or speaker, will see that button appear 20 minutes before the start time of your session. Clicking that button will launch you into Zoom. There are no additional links, no emails, no messages. Everything you need is right here on the platform. When this button appears, you will go ahead and click this button to be launched into your Zoom room. Now you'll know that you're here in this green room space, as it will tell you up at the top that you are in a practice session, and you will not be live until the Start Webinar button has been tapped. So you want to leave that there until you're truly ready to go live. Here in this Zoom room, a Pathable staff member will be waiting for you to go through your pre-session checklist. That will include testing your audio and video with the microphone and camera in the bottom left-hand corner to make sure you look and sound the way you'd like to. And if you will be sharing your screen, please open up the application you'd like to share, whether that's your PowerPoint, images, Google Slides, and then hit the green Share Screen button. Zoom will then ask you, would you like to share your entire desktop or just a single application? We do recommend that you share just a single application to avoid displaying any personal information from your desktop. If you will be sharing sound or a video, please click the checkbox in the bottom left-hand corner to make sure that your attendees will experience that properly. Once you're all set, you'll hit the blue Share button. Now, here in this Zoom room, we do want to have the live transcription enabled if this is an English session. So to do so, you'll hit the CC button and then select Enable so that there will be live transcription during the presentation. Here in the green room space, you will notice that each individual has an interesting name. Anyone who is in the green room, you as the speaker or the session host, will have the name host with a number following. That is because you are using the Pathable Zoom licenses. So before you go live, we would like you to please rename yourself. To do that, you'll open up the participants panel and hover over the one that says me. Click the More button and then select Rename. Of course, if you have any questions during this process, your Pathable staff member will be here to assist you. Once you have renamed yourself, you will display correctly for the attendees when you go live. Now, here in the Zoom room, we do have a couple of settings we would like you to take care of. If you could open up the participants panel as well as the chat. We are instructing that each of the participants are muted upon entry, and you do allow panelists to unmute themselves, rename, and start their video, excuse me. Again, your staff member will be here to walk through and double check all of this for you. And in the chat settings, you will need to click the 3 dots and select that attendees can chat with no one. This is just to ensure that there's no conversation here in the Zoom room from your attendees. As the session host and the speaker, you will be able to use the Zoom chat to talk to one another. This is just a security measure. Now, once your settings are correct and you have renamed yourself, you've shared your screen, and you're happy with your audio and video, clicking Start Webinar or Broadcast, depending on your Zoom version, will push you live to your attendees and start the recording of the webinar. Once you are live to the attendees, here in the Zoom room, your view does not change, but your attendees will see you through the embedded player out on the Pathable platform. So here you can see what that will look like from the attendees' point of view. They will be able to engage in the chat and polls just to the right of the embedded webinar. Now, by default for the webinar, the attendees will see the active speaker. So whoever is making noise is who will be featured for your attendees. If you do have multiple speakers or panelists and you would like them all to be seen on the screen, you can spotlight up to 9 people, and your attendees will see 4 individuals on the screen at a time. In order to use that spotlight feature, you will hover over the video tile of the individual you'd like to spotlight, click the 3 dots in the top right-hand corner, and then select Spotlight for Everyone. That will ensure that your attendees are seeing those individuals. While you are sharing your screen, attendees will see the shared content and hear your shared audio. So they will be paying attention to the content on the screen. We will not cut off any of your shared content. Notice it does fill the entire embedded window. And the recording of your session will capture your shared content, shared audio, and your shared video. So we recommend keeping your video on while you are presenting. Now, during the presentation, we do recommend using 2 monitors or setting up a split screen. The goal here is to be able to see your Zoom window alongside the Pathable platform. Remember, your attendees will be on the platform engaging in the chat and polls. So if you would like to see that activity during the presentation, you simply want to arrange your windows next to one another. You can do that with 2 monitors, with resizing, or setting up a split screen. So this is just another strategy so that you can see the activity out on the Pathable platform alongside your Zoom room. Now, while the conversation with attendees will be in the chat and polls, you can use the Zoom chat as a backstage channel. So this is where you can communicate with your fellow speakers, your session hosts, anyone who's in the green room, in that Zoom room with you. You can communicate with them via the Zoom chat. It is not linked to the conversation out on the Pathable platform. All right, we are going to go ahead and switch gears here and talk about our meetings. Remember, those meetings are those much more interactive styles of sessions, the ones that have breakout rooms. As the speaker or session host, you do still have access to the green room. You can get into that practice space 20 minutes before the start time of your session, and a Pathable Day of Support person will be there to run through your session checklist. Meetings do automatically begin 1 minute before the scheduled start time. So your attendees will automatically have access to your session 1 minute before the scheduled start time. There is no countdown timer in the Zoom room, so you'll want to keep an eye on your computer clock or your watch so that you're prepared for when attendees will be joining you. There still is a 2-minute leeway. So if your session is running just a little bit long, you want to ensure that you wrap up your conversations by 2 minutes past the scheduled end time before your session will automatically close. To start your meeting, you'll find it the same way you did to manage and the same way you did for a webinar. You'll head to the navigation bar and the schedule option, select My Schedule, and then click on the agenda card of the session you'd like to start. From there, when it is 20 minutes or less before the start time of your session, that countdown timer will be replaced with a Join Meeting button. Clicking this button here will launch you into your Zoom room. Now here, you'll want to test your audio and video, get that screen share up and running, and of course, you'll still need to rename yourself. When attendees join you in this room, they will have their proper name, so you don't need to worry about that. It's just for you as the session host or speaker. Now, when you are ready to begin the recording of your session, you will need to manually hit record and then select Record to Cloud to ensure that the recording is saved back for your event host to use at a later time. So you do make sure to hit that record button and then select the option to record to the cloud. Now, during the presentation here in the meeting room, you can also use that spotlight feature. So that is available for you. You'll select those 3 dots of the individual and then select spotlight for everyone. Here in the meeting space, your attendees will be in the Zoom room, so they can choose if they want to view speaker view or gallery view. And when you do spotlight, you're forcing their view entirely. So we do recommend using this function here in the meeting. In these Zoom controls, we want to remind you again to turn on the live transcript if this is an English session. And we will recommend that you double check the settings for your participants and in the chat. So open up both of those options. For that live transcription, you'll click that button and remember to select Enable. Now, in the participants panel, you will want to mute all upon entry. We are excited about these interactive sessions, but you want to make sure that you can do your introductions before you begin that collaborative nature. In the chat function, you do still want to set the chat to no one. We are making sure that all conversation happens on the Pathable platform. The reason for this is that is where the conversation will be automatically recorded. So it is very important to set your chat settings in the 3 dots that participants can chat with no one. When your attendees would like to have any sort of chatting conversation, you'll just direct them back out to the Pathable platform where the chat and polls are waiting for them. So we do want to disable the chat here in the meeting setting. You do still have the option to set up that split screen. Again, this is just a strategy so that you can see the chat and conversation happening on the Pathable platform while looking at your Zoom room. As the speaker or session host, you will have access to the Zoom chat and you can converse with your fellow presenters there. All right, we know this is a lot of information, so never fear, we have resources for you. The Convener's Resource Library is a great place for you to get all your questions answered. There are FAQs and recordings of these trainings. Everything is out there for you. There are best practices as well as Zoom recommendations. If you do have further questions, you can always check in with your convener contact at CWE, and we are going to go through many of the questions you've submitted here at the end of the presentation. Now, when you are in your session, please never share the direct link via social media or any other channel. This can result in the termination of your session and does circumvent the security, benefits, and tracking that we provide through the Pathable platform. So do encourage all of your attendees to gain access through the platform, head out and register for tickets to make sure they will all have proper access. We do recommend that you think just a moment about your lighting. You do not need a ring light to have nice, even lighting during your presentation. Simply avoid being next to or in front of a window and set up a lamp with a lampshade on either side of your camera. This is the best way to ensure that attendees can see you while you are presenting. We do recommend raising up your camera. Your goal is to have your camera level with your eyes so that while you're presenting and looking forward, you'll be looking directly at your attendees and avoiding any sort of double chin situation. A headset is definitely going to be better than your built-in microphone and speaker of your computer. So whether that is earbuds, headphones, or a proper headset, please make sure that the device is charged, you've tested it, and you're ready to go for the presentation. In this day and age, we are all so easily accessible. So during the presentation, please do turn off any noise-making devices, close out any applications, put your phone, computer, children, and pets, anything you have on Do Not Disturb to avoid disruptions. Virtual backgrounds are very popular, but you want to make sure that this background is not distracting or taking over your screen. Remember that a plain wall, books, or artwork, all of that is perfectly acceptable. You are the star of the presentation, not your background. The night before, please do restart your computer to ensure that nothing is updating or uploading in the background, and do close out any unnecessary tabs. These can produce unwanted noises or slow down your computer. And speaking of slowdowns, your connection to the platform for your presentation will only be as good as your personal bandwidth. So take your phone off your Wi-Fi, turn off any streaming devices or gaming devices, anything you can do to maximize your bandwidth while you are presenting. My final piece of advice is to simply practice. You can head out to zoom.us/test to open up a Zoom room. Zoom will then walk you through testing your audio and video, and will check that you sound and look the way you'd like to for your presentation. All right, that wraps up our presentation portion. Thank you all very much for joining us here. We are going to go through the questions that were submitted ahead of time, and we're going to start here with Adrian.
Thank you, Rachel. And just maybe also to say to the people listening today that in the previous webinar, there was more information about breakout rooms, about sharing screens. So please go and watch it. We decided not to go through it today because we had already made it and we wanted to highlight the most important part. So please go to webinar 2 and watch it because there is a lot of very important information in there too. So Rachel, the first question I do have, it has to do with downloading Zoom. So a session convener has asked whether people need to have Zoom downloaded. So basically, is it possible to go into the sessions without having it downloaded, especially if the session has breakout rooms?
I think Kat's going to take this one for us, but only if she comes off mute.
Yes, that was for Kat.
I already pressed unmute. Oh, well, there we go. The usual stuff. Yes. So attendees or participants, they can view sessions by using the web browser, and you can use your iPhone or your Android mobile. But to participate in a Zoom meeting or a breakout room, you will need to have Zoom downloaded. And as a speaker, session host, co-host, moderator, you need to have Zoom downloaded, the Zoom client. So that's the answer to that one.
Thank you, Kat. And the next one, it is for you, Rachel. We have a speaker a session convener has a speaker who can only use Zoom on his phone. Is this going to be an issue for the sessions impossible?
Yes, for speakers and session hosts, those who will be presenting through the platform, they do need to have Zoom downloaded for full functionality. They can use a work computer, a personal computer, but Zoom does need to be downloaded in order to have full and optimal experience as a speaker, session host, moderator, anyone who will be part of the presentation of the session.
Thank you, Rachel. And we go a bit into breakout rooms. And the question is also for you, Rachel. How do participants engage in breakout room groups? Are they able to raise their hands and mute themselves? Do they have, does the breakout group moderator have this power? And especially if in the main room, on the main session, they were muted, and what happens once they go into the groups?
Sure. All right, so let's break this down a little bit. Remember, when we're talking about breakout rooms, they're only available for meeting style sessions. So you'll want to double check and make sure that it is a meeting style session, and that's when those breakout rooms will be available. The goal of the breakout room is to have conversation and is to collaborate with one another. So when you go from the main session into the breakout room, your attendees will be able to unmute themselves. And as the session host, we do recommend disabling the chat in the breakout room as well. If you've disabled it in the main session, you'll need to do that again in the breakout room, because the goal is that you're having these conversations out loud with one another. So we do want everyone to be able to unmute and participate in those sessions with one another. The raise hand function will still function. So that is an option to use them there in the breakout rooms. But again, the goal of those breakout rooms are to have those smaller sessions where conversation out loud will be happening.
Thank you, Rachel. And we know that the session organizers have the possibility to create breakout rooms so that the attendees can select which room they can go to. But what happens if I, as a session organizer, see that one of the rooms is very crowded and the other two are not? am I able to reassign people from one room to another so there is a more balanced participation?
Yes.
So the answer is yes.
The
Very
answer
good.
is yes. So as the host or co-host within the Zoom room, which is what all of you will be when you join the meeting, you do have the ability to move people between breakout rooms, even if you have already assigned them or if they selected it themselves. You will see in the participants panel that you can move them between the rooms as you see fit.
Thank you. And I think this is the last question that we're going to have on the breakout rooms and has to do with the chat. So we have said that during the plenary session, we are disabling the chat, so people need to use the passable chat. But what happens in the breakout rooms? Are they able to use the chat on the breakout rooms?
So by default, the chat will be enabled, but we are requesting that you disable that when you're in the breakout rooms to encourage that conversation to be out loud. These are those smaller sessions, and the goal is to have that more collaborative nature. If the chat is not disabled, please note that it will not be recorded nor saved. So anything that happens in that breakout room chat will disappear when that room is closed. So again, more of a reason to have those conversations out loud.
So basically, we want a co-host or speaker that have the power to be able to disable the chat as they get into the breakout rooms themselves.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. We're moving a bit into videos and embedded situations. So the question is, the embedded video limits the visual experience of the attendees, as you have seen, or we have seen when sharing a screen. So what happens how do you go around it? So if we want to have the video or the share screen and the video of the filming of the speaker, is there a way around it?
There is not. So when you do share your screen, attendees will see your shared content and hear your audio. The reason for this is so they can see that entire shared content and not miss any of your slides or any of your presentation. Now, remember, the recording of this session will include your shared content, shared audio, and your shared video. So when you publish this at a later time, it will contain your shared video. But while you are live in the webinar, they will see just your shared content and hear your audio. Remember, they can be engaging in the chat and polls, so you can keep an eye on that to encourage engagement. But once you share your screen, they will be seeing your shared content only.
Thank you, Rachel. So basically, the recordings of the video, we will see the speakers speaking. So that's a good thing. So we're moving to polls. So you've mentioned that polls is for asking questions to speakers, or is it also to ask questions to the audience?
Both. So as a session host, as a speaker, you can decide how you would like to use the polls function. So if we come out here and look at this example again, you'll see here that under the polls, we have questions for the speaker. So the attendees can ask their questions here of you. And as a speaker or session host, you can add a poll in here for your attendees to respond to. So the polls tab can be used in both ways.
Thank you, Rachel. And we're moving into you, Kat. It's also a question about polls. And it is, can audience members view the poll results? And if so, how?
Well, you can actually choose whether you want the participants, the audience to view, and that you do in the manage, and you set that up as you're setting up your poll. So that there you have, as Rachel is showing now, only speakers can view the poll results. And also then you have the opportunity to keep the polls hidden until the session starts.
And in terms of your attendees seeing those responses, if we look back out here, they will be able to see the response when they click to answer or view it. So you can see here poll results. There are no results here, but if there were, they would see those results accordingly. So they'll display here under the polls tab if you've allowed the attendees to see the responses to the poll.
Thank you, Kat. And I have another question for you. Can you confirm that the recording of a webinar starts when you click broadcast, but when in a meeting, you have to click record in Zoom for it to happen?
Yes, that is correct. But there will be a Pathable AV support staff in the green room. and for the Zoom meetings that will remind you of this. It is also on your checklist. So hopefully we will not forget to have that recording set. But in the webinar, it's automatic. Meetings, yes, you have to do it.
And what's important in the meeting that you need to record to the cloud. If it's not recorded to the cloud, we won't be able to have it later in Puffable and furthermore into YouTube when we move the sessions into YouTube. These are the questions I had. Kat, do you have any questions for us?
Let's see. Yes. Who do you advise sets up the split screen? The host, the moderators, and speakers? Somebody thought first it was just the person responsible for monitoring the chat, but it strikes me that all these people would benefit from seeing both elements. Is that true, Rachel?
Yes, it's totally up to you as a session host, speaker, convener, co-host, whatever your role is, this is available for you. So it is up to each individual. The benefit of doing the split screen or organizing your windows in such a way is so that you can see the conversation with attendees alongside your Zoom room. So any individual who wants to be monitoring the activity on the platform can set up this split screen, but it is totally up to individual participant choices.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Now we have some questions regarding spotlighting. We have a convener who would like to, several things here. Start with spotlighting on the moderator for context, then spotlighting all the speakers, then moderator when the moderator intros them, and then spotlighting individual speakers when they speak, and spotlighting on all during the panel discussions. Which is the best way to do this? Well, I have to play with the spotlights on and off for each of the speakers each time.
So that's a lot of activity. So let's separate this out in two parts. The first is for a webinar, the default is that the attendees will see the active speaker. So if this is a webinar, I would recommend not needing to do spotlight, and you can just let the default setting of active speaker be in play. So that means whoever is making noise will be who your attendees see. So when the moderator speaks, they will be the person the attendees see. They can then mute themselves. When your speaker then speaks, that's who the attendee will see, and they can then mute themselves. That takes some of the work off of the session host between moving with all of the different parts of Spotlight. So the default of active speaker would be very useful in this situation here in a webinar, since you have a lot of moving parts and people going back and forth. You do have the opportunity to use Spotlight. Now, it will spotlight a total of 9 people, but your attendees will only see 4 people per page. So they will need to move between the pages to see if you have more than 4 individuals. So you do have the option to spotlight. You can absolutely spotlight the moderator and then remove it, spotlight the speakers and then remove it, spotlight the panel discussion and then remove it. But I do recommend practicing that ahead of time. So opening up your own Zoom room, bringing a couple of people into it, and make sure you're comfortable with moving the spotlight around. When we're looking at a meeting, your attendees do have the choice of what they would like to see, whether they want to see gallery view or if they want to see speaker view. And you can use that spotlight feature in a meeting as well. So you can use that here in a meeting if that's important there for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rachel. Now I see it, there's quite a lot of people who've raised their hands, and we are not taking any questions at all today. We will be sending out in the chat a link to a survey where you can pose your questions if we haven't managed to answer them during the rest of the Q&A that we're going through now. So sorry about that, but we do have quite a lot of questions left to go through, so we're going to continue here. Now, let me see. I have a question for you, Adrian. What is the list I see under People's tab in my session? Are they the co-hosts?
No. So basically, what you do have, you have two sites into, and we can see now. So under the webinar section, you have the speakers and the co-host. So basically everybody that we have been adding into your session will be appearing in there. Under the tab section, what you do have is all the people that have shown interest to attend your session. So basically, as a World Week attendee comes to Pathable, they're going to be starting favoriting the sessions to create the schedule. So everybody who has favorited your session will appear into that tab. So you need to take this as the interest of the people towards your session. I wouldn't say that this is going to be your full attendance list, but it will give you an idea of who those people are.
Thank you. That's great. I have another question for you. Will CV be sharing the participant list and their email IDs with the session host following the sessions? And if yes, when will this information be shared?
The answer is yes and no. So basically, we need to comply with GDPR legislation. So we're asking all the session, all the World Week attendees to see if they are happy that we share the personal data with the session host that they are attending to. If they have agreed to do that, we will be sharing that information. If they have not agreed to do that, what we will do, we will be sharing some demographic of those who have said no. So then you get an idea of who were those people, but without knowing who they really are. This information takes a while for us to collect and to process. So we will be doing this after World Water Week, probably throughout the month of September. And our idea is always to do that the first 2-3 weeks of September.
Great, that's really good. A question here for you, Rachel. Should we plan to a couple of minutes at the start of the session for people to join, or start promptly? If we do wait, should we wait until just before the person speaks to press record? And is there any technical stuff that we should run through with us at the start with attendees, like using the chat and polls, etc.? Really good question.
Yeah. So we do have a very tight schedule here at World Water Week. As you know, there are many, many sessions. So we are encouraging you to please start and end your sessions right on time. Your attendees will be able to join you. They do see this countdown timer, so they'll know exactly when they can get into your session. So we are encouraging you to please start and end promptly to really be on top of your schedule there. When you're thinking about technical stuff to run through with attendees, generally, that's up to the individual presenter. Remember, for a webinar, all they will do is join your session and everything will be on the page for them. So you can simply let them know that we're taking questions in the polls, which will be the tab to the right of the embedded window, or that they can ask their conversations here in the chat. So if you do want to give them those instructions, that's perfectly fine and up to you. But remember, they don't have any other choices. So they'll be right here on the page and they'll see exactly how to engage throughout the webinar. When you are in the meeting setting, again, it is up to you as the speaker or session host. You can let them know that the chat has been disabled and that you are encouraging and requiring all conversation and polls to be out on the Pathable platform. So I would say, when you do publish a poll, letting them know that poll is available so they can go out and participate on the platform itself. Generally, what our experience is here at Pathable is that once attendees have joined a couple of sessions, they will completely understand how to engage with the session. So if your session is on day 3 of the conference, I don't think that you need to spend your precious time explaining any of that other than to remind them that the polls are available or to direct them back out to the chat on the platform. But generally, the sessions are all going to run very similarly and your attendees will understand how to participate.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I have another question for you here. If a speaker has poor internet connection, can they join the webinar by phone on Pathable in the same way that one would do in a standalone Zoom meeting?
So our preference is that all speakers, session hosts, anyone who will be a part of the presentation do join from a computer. So we do strongly encourage that you are joining from your computer to have full functionality within Zoom for the presentation. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties during that green room time, you will have a Pathable staff member there with you, and they can attempt to help you sort out any problems you're having. But we really do want everyone to please join via a computer.
That's great. And one here for you, Adrian. In the Pathable, I do not see any tabs to change my Zoom settings. How do we do that?
Yes, and I guess here I have a question back to you. Which basically, I have two answers for you. So if what you mean by Zoom settings is whether if it's you want to change from a webinar to a meeting or from a meeting to a webinar, that you cannot do yourself. So you need to let your CW contact person that you want to verify the type of session that you want, and if you're not happy with it, then we need to know your preference. So then basically we can do it on the back end. If you talk about the Zoom settings of your session, so basically muting the audience, disabling the chat, that you will not have in Pathable, that you will have only when you get into the green room, and you will have to do during the 20 minutes of the green room. So that's why it's also very important that the co-hosts and the speakers arrive to the green room in time, because you need to prepare for your session. You need to enable the functions that you need to enable and disable those that need to be disabled.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrian. So that sort of sums up our questions and answer part of today. I can add that we are during this afternoon going to be posting some new videos, some new films in the Convener Resource Library, and it is actually a practice session that we have done to show you how you actually move through starting your session into the green room and doing a webinar and doing the same for a Zoom meeting. And we had a lot of fun doing this, the World Water Week team, and we also realized how extremely important it was to practice all these steps, not so much the steps going into the meetings or webinars, but actually what we're doing inside the webinar and meeting. So I can really, really recommend having a look at those videos, but also practicing. So I think that's about it for now. Adrian, you wanted to share the link to where to add more questions if you have any?
I have already posted the link in the chat, so people should have access to this. We have some pending questions that have not been answered here. As we said before, we're going to be answer them by writing, and we're going to post them in the Convener Success website. It's also important, and we recommend that you read all the material that we're posting in the Convener Success website, especially the guide to the rehearsal and the checklist. So basically, you have a run through detailed list of what you need to test, what you need to try to ensure that your session is successful. And as we said before, you don't need to, you can do your testing of Zoom into any Zoom connection. You don't have to do it through Pathable. You can do it in a personal Zoom, or you can create a free Zoom account to do a rehearsal. So you don't need to do it into Pathable.
So thank you very much for joining us today. As you know, we are very much encouraging you to go ahead and test, open up your own Zoom room, make sure you're comfortable with all of the Zoom tools. As Adrian said, you can do that via your own license with a free license. Just simply open up a Zoom room and make sure you're comfortable with where all the buttons are. You can head out to zoom.us/test, which will also give you that space so you can test your audio and video and look at all of the standard Zoom buttons. So thank you all very much. If you do have any extra questions or anything that we did not cover today, you will see that link in the chat where you can head out to the survey to go ahead and get those questions answered. But thank you again for joining us. We're so happy to see you here, and we're very excited for World Water Week. We cannot wait to see you out on the Pathable platform. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go ahead and check out all of that convener resources in the library to make sure that you are up to speed on everything you need to know for your presentation. Thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Hello.
Bye. Thank you. Hey, Dor.